Hello everyone. Today we will be starting with session 5 of atomic structure. Previously we are done with the discovery of fundamental particles, that is neutron, proton, electron. Right. Atomic models, we have discussed the Thomson model of an atom and Rutherford models of an atom. Now spectral studies we are continuing with, right, and after this session we will be probably doing uncertainty principle, photoelectric effect, electronic configuration, and so on, right? So today we will discuss more about the spectral studies. Now what is the series limit, right? The last line of any series is called the series limit. For example, let us say that you are having Lyman, then you are having Balmer, right? We know that for Lyman, the final state or the final energy level is basically what? 1. And for Balmer, it is 2. Right? That means from any higher energy level, if the electron is coming to the ground state, that is n equals to 1 state, then it will be coming under the Lyman series. And if from any above state, finally the electron is reaching the second level, right? That means n equals to 2, that is Balmer. And then Paschen, bracket, Pfund, and so on. This we have discussed that for Lyman, n1 equals to 1. For Balmer, n1 equals to 2. For Paschen, n1 equals to 3. Then for bracket, it is n1 equals to 4. And then for Pfund, it is n1 equals to 5. Right? So what should be the last line? We know that n can go up to infinity, right? So last line will be n2 equals to infinity. So from infinity to 1 will be the last line of the Lyman series. From infinity to 2 will be the last line of the Balmer series. From infinity to 3 will be the last line of the Paschen series, and so on. Right? So these series, the last line of the series is called as series limit. This you need to remember. Series limit is where n2 equals to infinity and n1 will be based upon the respective series. For example, for Lyman it will be 1, Balmer it will be 2, bracket it will be 3, and so on. Now coming on to the question, what is the wave number of series limit in Balmer series of hydrogen spectrum? Right, so for Balmer series we already know that n1 equals to what? 2, right? And series limit is there, so that means what? n2 equals to infinity. Now wave number it is asking, so we can write down that 1 by lambda equals to RH into 1 upon n1 square minus 1 upon n2 square, right? Now you put the values here. What is wave number? That is 1 upon lambda, right? So this will become equal to wave number equals to Rydberg constant, that is RH, into 1 upon n1 is what? 2. So 1 upon 4 minus 1 upon infinity square. So 1 upon infinity will be coming out to be 0. So we will be left with that wave number will be equal to what? Rydberg constant divided by 4. Now you can put down the value of Rydberg constant. So in centimeter inverse, if you put down the value of Rydberg constant, it will be 109,678 centimeter inverse around, right? Rydberg constant value you will be given in your exam. So just you have to divide the Rydberg constant by 4. Write down the values as wave number will be equal to what? 109,678. This I am giving approximate value. The purely correct value will be given to you in the examination. Somewhere we take it as 109,679. Somewhere it is mentioned as 109,000. So based upon the calculation stuff, they will be providing you with the Rydberg value, and the exact value we will be discussing in the upcoming slide. So 9678 divided by 4, right? So this will be coming equal to 2.725 into 10 raised to the power 6 meter inverse. Now the answer is in meter inverse. Now the answer we will be getting, because this was in centimeter inverse, this was in centimeter inverse, so you have to convert it into what? Meter inverse, right? So 1 upon centimeter equals to how many meters? That you need to find out. We already know that 1 meter equals to what? 100 centimeter. Right? Or we can also write down that centimeter inverse equals to 100 into meter inverse. Or you can write down that centimeter inverse divided by 100 will be equal to what? Meter inverse. So this is in centimeter inverse. You divide it by 100. That means you multiply 4 into 100. Now this will come as 2.725 into 10 raised to the power 6 meter inverse. Right? So depending upon the units that are mentioned in your answer, whether it is meter inverse, centimeter inverse, you need to calculate. Okay, units are very important from the examination point of view. Now next is the Rydberg formula. Right, so what is the Rydberg formula? 1 upon lambda or wave number will be equal to what? Rydberg constant into 1 upon n1 square minus 1 upon n2 square, and the Rydberg constant value is what? 109678 centimeter inverse. Right, you can convert into meter inverse also, or you can convert into angstrom inverse also, or any per unit length. Right. So for Lyman series n1 equals to 1, n2 can be 2, 3, 4. That means n2 should always be greater than n1. This is important, right? So Balmer can be n1 equals to 2, n2 can be 3, 4, 5, n1 can be 3 for Paschen, n2 can be 4, 5, 6, and for bracket n1 can be 4 and n2 can be 5, 6, 7, and fund n1 can be 5 and n2 can be 6, 7 up to infinity, right? Now next is, these spectral lines lie in the region of ultraviolet of electromagnetic spectrum. Balmer lies in visible. Now this is important that Balmer lines are colored because they lie in visible region, right? And the other three lies in the infrared region, that is IR region. So amongst them only Balmer series will be colored. Now for other species, let us say for hydrogen-like species. Hydrogen-like species are what species? That are containing one electron. That are containing one electron. So if you will consider helium, it has 2 electrons. Now helium plus will have 1 electron. Lithium is having 3 electrons. Lithium 2 plus will be having 1 electron. Right? So Rydberg formula, if you consider here, it will be 1 upon lambda equals to z square. Now this is important that z equals to atomic number. So for hydrogen z equals to 1, that means you are multiplying the whole formula by 1. So for hydrogen it becomes 1 upon lambda equals to RH into 1 upon n1 square minus 1 upon n2 square. But for other species you have to use the formula as 1 upon lambda equals to z square. You have to multiply the term by z square, where z is the atomic number. So Z for helium will be equal to what? 2. So you have to substitute 2 additionally here, right? 2 square, that will be equal to what? 4. Now considering the rth line of the series. Now what is the rth line? For example, let us say I tell you to find out the third line of Lyman series. Third line of Lyman series. Right? Now how will you find it? Basically, I am asking the third line. That means take it as R equals to 3. Right? Now for Lyman series, we know what is N. N1 equals to what? 1. So now we need to find what? N2. So the formula you can use here is that N2 equals to N1 plus R. Right? So final state, or the initial state, because it is an emission spectrum, right? So N2 is always greater than N1. So N2 will be equal to what? N1 plus R, and N1 is what? 1 for Lyman, and R is what? Third line I have asked, so N2 will be equal to what? 4, right? So that means third line is that we are talking about the transition where the electron is going from the fourth energy state to the first energy state, right? Again, we'll take an example. Now this will be, let us suppose that we are taking sixth line of bracket series. So it is what? Lyman, Balmer, Paschen, then bracket, and then P fund, right? So this will be 1, 2, 3, 4. So N1 equals to 4 for bracket series. Now, sixth line we have to find out. That means R will be equal to 6. So N2 will be equal to what? 10. Right? That means the transition from 10 to 4 will be equal to the sixth line of the bracket series. Right? So in this way you can find out N2 and N1. Now here the question comes as that what is the wavelength of the third line? Yeah, third line of Lyman series in helium plus ion spectrum, right? Now it is asking about third line of Lyman series. From the formula we will find out N2, right? So N2 is what? N1 plus R, right? Now R is what? 3. N1 for Lyman is what? 1. So N2 will be equal to what? 4. Now N2 equals to 4 and N1 equals to 1. Now we will apply the formula as the Rydberg formula. 1 upon lambda equals to RH into Z square, where Z is the atomic number and Z is 2 for helium, right? So this will be what? 1 upon N1 square, that is 1 square, minus 1 upon 4 square, that means 16, right? So this will be equal to what? 1 upon lambda equals to Rydberg constant into 4, right? Into, if you will solve this, you will be getting 16 minus 1, that is equals to what? 15 divided by 16. Now cancel them, 4 and 16, this will become 4. Now you have to find out the wavelength, right? So inverse them. So lambda will be equal to what? 4 divided by 15R. Denominator will become the numerator and numerator will become the denominator. This is the answer for the particular question. Now the next question says that the spectrum of helium is expected to be similar to that of. Now we know the elements which are having, or the ions which are having the same number of electron will have the same spectrum, right? So for helium, if you consider, it is having 2 electrons. Helium plus is having 1 electron. Sodium is having 11 electron. Hydrogen is having 1 electron. And lithium plus is having how many electrons? 2 electrons. So the spectrum of helium and lithium plus will be same. Now next question comes, the shortest wavelength for the Lyman series is. Now shortest wavelength means what? See, energy equals to hc by lambda, right? We know that shortest wavelength will mean the highest energy, right? So you have to find out that which transition will have a highest energy, that is equals to the infinity, the 1. The last line, the series limit will be of the highest energy, right? So you have to find out N2 and N1 respectively. So N2 equals to infinity for series limit and N1 equals to 1 for series limit. Right, now you have to find out the wavelength. Again 1 upon lambda will be equal to what? 109,678 into 1 upon N1 square, that is 1 square minus 1 upon infinity square. Right? So this will become equal to what? 1 upon lambda equals to 109,678, and this will be in what? Centimeter inverse. Now lambda you need to find out, reciprocate 1 upon 109,678 centimeter. Now you have to convert centimeter into angstrom. We know that 1 angstrom will be equal to what? 10 raised to the power minus 8 centimeter. So 1 centimeter will be equal to what? 10 raised to the power 8 angstrom. Right? So solve this and convert it into angstrom. You will be getting, yeah. So lambda will be coming out to be this. Right? Now we know that this can be dealt as angstrom. So we will write it as 912 angstrom approximately. So the answer will be B. Now we are completed with Thomson model of an atom, Rutherford model of an atom, and now we will be dealing with the Bohr's model of an atom, right? So Bohr developed a theoretical model for hydrogen atom. Hydrogen atom means for single electron species only, right? Now this is very important, that Bohr's model is applicable, or the calculations that we will be doing for the Bohr's model will be applicable to only one electron system, not more than one electron system. See, one electron is the simplest system that we can study, because there are no inter-electronic repulsion there. If you will contain, let us say, 2 electron system or 3 electron system or 4 electron system, because inter-electronic repulsions we have to take into account, we cannot apply, basically their study becomes more difficult as the number of electron increases, right? So that is why you cannot apply Bohr's model to multi-electron species, right? He gave a simple model which was only for hydrogen and hydrogen-like species. That means the species which are containing only one electron, right? Now let us see some postulates of the Bohr's model. First one is that atom is consisting of a dense nucleus and the electrons are revolving in the circular orbit and they are not emitting any energy. This is very important, that they are not losing any energy. Okay. Now the second one is that why the electrons are revolving and not moving like a spiral that we saw in the drawbacks of the Rutherford model of an atom, that why are they not attracted to the nucleus and they fall into the nucleus eventually. This is because the electrostatic force of attraction between the nucleus would provide necessary centripetal acceleration to keep the electron in circular orbit. So what is the force that is basically responsible for the electron to be moving into a circular motion? Is the electrostatic force of attraction. Or in the simple way, you can also understand it as that the force of electrostatic force of attraction, I am writing it as, let us say, Fe, is converted into centripetal acceleration, which is necessary to provide the electron to be kept in the kept in the circular orbit, right? To be kept into the circular orbit, electrostatic force of attraction is being converted into centripetal acceleration. Now the next is, it is not that each and every orbit is containing electron. Only those orbits will be containing electron whose angular momentum is an integral multiple of h by 2 pi. What is angular momentum? I have already make thorough of this, that there are two types of momentum. Angular momentum is there and linear momentum is there, right? Linear momentum formula is what? mv, and if you multiply this by r, this will become what? Angular momentum. So mvr is what? Angular momentum, right? Where m is what? Mass of the electron, v is the velocity, n is the orbit number or the principal quantum number, r is the radius, and h is the Planck's constant, right? So mvr equals to nh by 2 pi. Only those orbits which will have angular momentum either equal to h by 2 pi or 2h by 2 pi or 3h by 2 pi or 4h by 2 pi and so on, right? That means it should be an integral multiple of nh by 2 pi. Only those orbits will be containing electron. Rest of the circular orbits will not be containing electron, okay? Now this is important. As long as the electron is moving, let us say that the electron is present in the first orbit, right? It is moving in a circular motion. Now, as long it is present in the first orbit, it will neither lose energy nor it will gain energy, right? That is why these orbits are called what? As stationary states, right? However, if the electron changes its orbit, for example, it moves to a lower orbit or it moves to a higher orbit, that will require a change of energy. Actually, each orbit is associated with a particular amount of energy that is known as what? Energy levels. So what are these orbits? Basically energy levels. And the electron present in the specific orbit, the energy of that particular electron which is present in a specific orbit will be equal to the energy of that particular level. For example, let us say if the electron is present in the second orbit, right? So the energy of the second energy level will be equal to the energy of that electron. Okay, so we can mention the orbits as 1, 2, 3, 4 also, or we can mention the orbits as K, L, M, N shell also, right? Now, when the electron is in its parent orbit, then it is known as what? The ground state or the normal state, where it is neither losing energy nor it is gaining energy, right? Now, this is very important, that the drawback of the Rutherford model that was there, that the electron should go into the spiral basically because of the Maxwell theory of electromagnetic radiation, and ultimately it should fall down into the nucleus, right? But here what is happening? Bohr's model clearly specified that subatomic particles do not follow Maxwell theory of electromagnetic radiation. And if they do not follow Maxwell theory of electromagnetic radiation, there is no possibility that the electron would follow a spiral motion by losing energy and eventually fall into the nucleus, right? Now, this is very important. See, what happens is when the electron moves from a lower energy state to a higher energy state. Let us say this is N1, and N1 means the first energy orbit and N2 is the second energy orbit. Let us say we are having this. Now, initially the electron's ground state was energy level 1. It was revolving in the energy level 1. Now, I give this electron some particular amount of energy and this jumps into the second orbit. That means it has gained that much amount of energy, and therefore it has raised its energy by moving on to the second energy level. It has absorbed that much amount of energy. Now, how much amount of energy should I give that the electron should be moving from the first energy orbit to the second energy orbit will be equal to the energy difference between the two orbits. That means the energy that I need to supply for the electron to be moving into the second orbit from the first orbit will be equal to what? E2 minus E1. If I want the electron to move from the first orbit to the third orbit, let us say, right? Then the amount of energy that I need to provide to the electron will be E3 minus E1, right? That means the energy difference between the two levels. Now, when the electron has absorbed energy and moved on to a newer state, that state is called what? Excited state. The initial state was called what? Ground state, right? Now, what happens because the excited state is very stable? Let us say we are having what? E1 here and E2 here. Right, so the electron, by absorbing some energy, it has moved to the E2 level. Now it becomes unstable. It wants to come back to its original state because it was stable in its original state. So what it will do, that it will release the amount of energy. It will lose energy and come back to the ground state itself. And how much energy it will lose? Again, equal to the energy difference. That is E2 minus E1. Okay, so if the electron is moving from a lower energy state to a higher energy state, that means it is absorbing energy. And if the electron is moving from the higher energy state to the lower energy state, that means it is emitting energy, right? Here you can see that this particular electron is absorbing energy and moving to a higher level. Here you can see, yeah, now absorbs energy, higher level, comes back to the initial level and releases energy. And what will be the amount of energy absorbed or released? That will be equal to what? The difference between the energy levels, that is E2 minus E1 here. Because the electron is moving from first to 2 and then it is moving back from 2 to 1, right? So the energy that must be absorbed or released in the two particular phenomena will be equal to the energy difference between the two levels, that is E2 minus E1. And we already know that according to Planck's, delta E will be equal to what? H nu. So E2 minus E1 will be equal to what? H nu, where nu is the frequency of the radiation that it is absorbing or releasing. Okay. So I hope I'm clear. So these were the postulates of the Bohr's model. So that's all for today. Now we will meet in the next session. Happy learning to all.